Picture this. Just 15 years ago, if you told an economist that Morocco would become the second largest car producer in Africa, manufacturing over 500,000 vehicles annually, they would have laughed. If you said this North African kingdom would attract Boeing and Airbus suppliers to set up aerospace factories in the Sahara Desert's shadow, they would have questioned your sanity. And if you claimed that Morocco would control 70% of the world's most critical fertilizer ingredient while building one of the planet's busiest container ports, they would have dismissed you entirely. Yet here we are in 2026, and Morocco has quietly achieved something extraordinary. While the world focused on China's manufacturing dominance, India's tech boom, and Eastern Europe's industrial transformation, Morocco was executing one of the most successful economic development strategies of the 21st century. This wasn't luck, coincidence, or the discovery of vast oil reserves. This was strategic planning at its finest, executed with surgical precision over 2 decades. Today, Morocco's largest port handles nearly 10 million containers annually, ranking among the world's busiest shipping hubs. Companies that once automatically chose Turkey, Romania, or Mexico for their European supply chains are now setting up shop in industrial zones that didn't exist 20 years ago. Major automotive brands like Renault and Stellantis have made Morocco a cornerstone of their global production networks, with around 80% of vehicles produced there shipped directly to European markets. But perhaps most remarkably, Morocco accomplished this transformation while maintaining political stability in a region torn apart by revolutions, civil wars, and economic collapse. As Tunisia struggled with political upheaval, Libya descended into chaos, and Algeria faced repeated protests over economic stagnation, Morocco charted a different course. The kingdom became the reliable partner that European manufacturers desperately needed as global supply chains grew increasingly fragile. Have you ever wondered why some countries successfully leap from agricultural economies to industrial powerhouses while others remain trapped in poverty despite decades of foreign aid and investment? Morocco's story provides compelling answers. This wasn't about natural resource discoveries or demographic luck. Instead, it represents a masterclass in economic geography, strategic infrastructure development, and understanding exactly what global manufacturers need to succeed. The numbers tell an incredible story. In 1999, Morocco had less than 100 kilometers of highways. Today, it boasts over 2,100 kilometers of modern highway network, making it one of Africa's most connected countries. Aerospace exports, virtually non-existent 2 decades ago, now exceed $2 billion annually. And through its state-owned phosphate giant, OCP, Morocco controls the raw material that feeds half the world's agricultural production and powers the global transition to electric vehicles. This is the story of how geography, timing, and brilliant execution converged to create what we're calling on Economic Rewind, the Moroccan Miracle. It's a transformation that offers lessons for developing economies worldwide while fundamentally reshaping North Africa's role in global trade. But understanding how Morocco pulled this off requires diving deep into the strategic decisions, infrastructure investments, and geopolitical advantages that made this economic revolution possible. Morocco's industrial transformation didn't begin with a sudden epiphany or foreign consultants' recommendation. Instead, it emerged from a harsh recognition that the kingdom's traditional economic model was reaching its limits. By the early 2000s, Morocco's economy relied heavily on agriculture, mining, tourism, and remittances from workers abroad. While these sectors provided stability, they offered limited opportunities for the rapid job creation and economic growth that Morocco's young, growing population desperately needed. The agricultural sector, despite Morocco's favorable Mediterranean climate, remained vulnerable to drought cycles that could devastate rural communities overnight. Tourism, while profitable, was seasonal and susceptible to global economic downturns and regional instability. Mining, particularly phosphates, generated substantial revenues, but employed relatively few people and provided little technological spillover to other industries. Most critically, none of these sectors offered the path to sustained industrial development that had lifted countries like South Korea, Taiwan, and Ireland from poverty to prosperity. The turning point came with King Mohammed VI's ascension to the throne in 1999, and his government's recognition that Morocco needed to fundamentally reimagine its economic trajectory. Rather than continuing to wait for foreign investors to discover Morocco's potential, the kingdom decided to proactively create the conditions that would make Morocco irresistible to global manufacturers. This represented a philosophical shift from passive recipient of foreign aid to active architect of industrial development. The strategy crystallized in the Emergence Plan launched in 2005, followed by the National Pact for Industrial Emergence. Unlike previous development initiatives that focused on broad economic reforms or sector-by-sector improvements, these plans took a holistic approach. They recognized that successful industrial development required simultaneous investments in infrastructure, education, regulatory reform, and industrial ecosystems. Most importantly, they acknowledged that Morocco needed to compete not just on low labor costs, but on reliability, connectivity, and strategic value to global supply chains. The Emergence Plan identified specific sectors where Morocco could build competitive advantages: automotive, aerospace, electronics, textiles, and agribusiness. Rather than trying to compete across all manufacturing categories, Morocco focused its resources on industries where its geographic location, existing capabilities, and market access could create genuine advantages. This sector-focused approach allowed for coordinated investments in specialized infrastructure, targeted workforce development, and industry-specific regulatory frameworks. Central to this strategy was the development of industrial zones, designed not as isolated factories, but as integrated ecosystems. The concept drew lessons from successful models in East Asia, while adapting them to Morocco's specific circumstances. These zones would offer more than cheap land and tax incentives. They would provide turnkey solutions for manufacturers, pre-built infrastructure, simplified regulations, trained workforces, and direct access to global trade routes. The Tangier Free Zone, inaugurated in 1999 but significantly expanded throughout the 2000s, became the first major test of this approach. Located strategically near the Strait of Gibraltar, the zone offered manufacturers something unprecedented in North Africa: the ability to operate almost as if they were based in Europe, but with significantly lower costs. Companies setting up in Tangier could access European markets within days, not weeks, while enjoying streamlined customs procedures, stable electricity supply, and a workforce trained specifically for manufacturing operations. But Morocco's planners understood that industrial zones alone wouldn't be sufficient. Global manufacturers needed more than just factories. They needed comprehensive logistics networks that can move goods efficiently from production lines to global markets. This realization led to one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in African history: the development of Tangier Med Port. Construction of Tangier Med began in 2004 with a clear vision: create a world-class container port that could serve as a gateway between Africa, Europe, and the Americas. The project wasn't just about building a port. It was about creating a logistics hub that could handle the volume, speed, and reliability requirements of global supply chains. The port's location, just 14 kilometers from Spain, offered unique advantages that no amount of investment could replicate elsewhere. When Tangier Med's first phase opened in 2007, it immediately began attracting attention from global shipping lines and manufacturers. The port offered something that most African ports couldn't: predictable service, modern equipment, and direct connections to major European markets. But the real breakthrough came as Morocco began linking Tangier Med to its emerging industrial zones, creating integrated production export systems that could compete with established manufacturing hubs in Asia and Eastern Europe. The financial crisis of 2008 provided an unexpected opportunity for Morocco to accelerate its industrial strategy. As global manufacturers faced pressure to reduce costs and diversify supply chains away from overdependence on Asia, Morocco's emerging industrial capabilities gained new relevance. European companies, in particular, began looking for reliable, nearby alternatives to Asian production, especially for products where transportation costs and delivery times mattered significantly. The genius of Morocco's industrial strategy lay not in any single infrastructure project, but in how multiple investments reinforced each other to create a comprehensive manufacturing ecosystem. While many developing countries build infrastructure piecemeal, a port here, a highway there, an industrial zone somewhere else, Morocco approached infrastructure development as an integrated system designed to solve the specific logistical challenges that global manufacturers face. At the heart of this system sits Tangier Med, which has grown from an ambitious construction project into Africa's largest container port. Today, the port handles nearly 10 million containers annually, ranking among the world's 30 busiest ports. But raw volume statistics don't capture Tangier Med's strategic importance. The port maintains direct shipping connections to over 180 ports across 70 countries, with regular services to major European markets that can be reached in less than 3 days. For manufacturers, this connectivity translates into predictable delivery schedules and reduced inventory costs, advantages that can make the difference between profitable and unprofitable operations. What sets Tangier Med apart from other African ports is its operational reliability. While ports in Lagos, Dar es Salaam, or Alexandria often struggle with congestion, equipment failures, and bureaucratic delays, Tangier Med operates with European-level efficiency. Container dwell times, the period goods spend sitting in port, average less than 3 days, compared to weeks in some African ports. This reliability stems from significant investments in modern equipment, streamlined customs procedures, and, most critically, adequate capacity that prevents the bottlenecks that plague many emerging market ports. The integration between Tangier Med and Morocco's industrial zones creates unique advantages for manufacturers. At Tangier Automotive City, vehicles roll off assembly lines and onto ships within hours, not days. This proximity eliminates the transportation costs and delays that erode competitiveness in many developing countries. Companies operating in Ethiopia's industrial parks, for example, must transport goods nearly 900 kilometers to reach Djibouti port, often facing border delays and poor road conditions that can add weeks to delivery schedules. Morocco's highway network amplifies these logistical advantages. The kingdom has expanded its highway system from less than 100 kilometers in 1999 to over 2,100 kilometers today, creating one of Africa's most extensive highway networks. These aren't simple two-lane roads, but modern highways with multiple lanes, controlled access, and direct connections between industrial zones, ports, and major cities. The highway connecting Tangier to Casablanca, for instance, allows trucks to move between Morocco's two most important industrial corridors in under 4 hours. But Morocco's infrastructure strategy extended beyond roads and ports to address one of Africa's most persistent industrial challenges: reliable electricity supply. Manufacturing operations, particularly in automotive and aerospace sectors, require consistent, high-quality power that many African countries struggle to provide. Morocco tackled this challenge through massive investments in renewable energy capacity, positioning the kingdom as a regional leader in solar and wind power generation. The Noor Ouarzazate Solar Complex, one of the world's largest solar installations, exemplifies Morocco's approach to energy infrastructure. Built in phases between 2016 and 2018, the complex can generate over 580 megawatts of power, enough to supply electricity to over 1 million homes. For industrial operations, this renewable capacity provides cost-predictable electricity that doesn't depend on volatile fossil fuel prices or uncertain import supplies. The complex uses concentrated solar power technology that can continue generating electricity for hours after sunset, providing the consistent power supply that manufacturing operations require. Wind power development along Morocco's Atlantic coast complements solar generation, taking advantage of consistent coastal winds to provide additional renewable capacity. These wind farms feed directly into the national electrical grid, helping stabilize power supplies for industrial users while reducing electricity costs over time. For energy-intensive operations like steel production or aluminum smelting, access to cheap, reliable, renewable power can determine whether investments are economically viable. Morocco's rail infrastructure received similar strategic attention, particularly with the development of the Al Borak high-speed rail line, connecting Tangier to Casablanca. Opened in 2018, this railway cuts travel time between Morocco's two most important industrial centers from nearly 5 hours to just over 2 hours. While the line primarily serves passenger traffic, it represents broader improvements in rail infrastructure that facilitate freight movement and reduce logistics costs for manufacturers. The high-speed rail project also demonstrated Morocco's willingness to invest in world-class infrastructure, sending signals to international investors about the kingdom's long-term commitment to industrial development. Many countries announce ambitious infrastructure plans that never materialize or are completed years behind schedule. Morocco's successful delivery of complex projects like Al Borak and Tangier Med established credibility with global manufacturers who need confidence that announced infrastructure will actually be built. Airport capacity expansion under Morocco's 2030 plan aims to more than double national airport capacity. This will support tourism, but also high-value trade, executive mobility, and time-sensitive cargo, especially as the country prepares to co-host the 2030 FIFA World Cup with Spain and Portugal. Now, layered on top of this physical infrastructure sits Morocco's trade architecture. The country holds free trade agreements with the European Union, the United States, Turkey, and dozens of African and Arab partners. For European firms in particular, manufacturing in Morocco is almost like manufacturing inside the EU, but with lower labor costs, faster permitting, and cheaper land. Under the EU-Morocco Association Agreement, most industrial tariffs are removed, meaning a car built in Kenitra can arrive in Europe without the usual frictions faced by non-EU producers. But Morocco's biggest advantage is the one it never built: geography. It sits just 14 kilometers from Spain, close enough that some ferries cross the Strait of Gibraltar in under an hour. More than 100,000 ships pass through that strait every year, making it one of the busiest shipping corridors on Earth. From Morocco's ports, there are direct shipping routes into France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and the UK, all reachable far faster than from Asia. That location gives Morocco something most distant competitors cannot replicate: water infrastructure development. While less visible than ports and highways, proved equally crucial for industrial success. Manufacturing operations require large quantities of water for production processes. Morocco invested heavily in desalination and water treatment facilities to ensure industrial zones wouldn't face water shortages. The cumulative effect of these infrastructure investments created something unique in Africa: an industrial environment where global manufacturers could operate with the reliability and efficiency they expect in developed countries, but with significantly lower costs. By 2012, Morocco's infrastructure investments in industrial zones had created the foundation for manufacturing growth, but the kingdom still needed to prove it could attract and successfully host world-class industrial operations. The breakthrough came when Renault, the French automotive giant, committed to building a major assembly plant in Tangier. This decision would validate Morocco's industrial strategy and trigger a manufacturing boom that continues today. Renault's Tangier plant, which opened in 2012, represented a watershed moment for Moroccan manufacturing. The facility was designed not as a simple assembly operation, but as a sophisticated manufacturing hub capable of producing vehicles for global markets. Within its first few years of operation, the plant was producing over 340,000 vehicles annually, making it one of Renault's most efficient factories worldwide. The success of the Tangier operation proved that Morocco could handle complex, high-volume manufacturing while maintaining the quality standards that global markets demand. The automotive cluster that emerged around Renault's investment illustrates how Morocco's industrial strategy created self-reinforcing growth dynamics. As Renault ramped up production, dozens of automotive suppliers established operations nearby to serve the assembly plant. Companies producing seats, wiring harnesses, dashboards, and exhaust systems set up factories within the Tangier automotive city, creating a dense network of suppliers that reduced costs and improved efficiency for all participants. This supplier ecosystem became a magnet for additional automotive investments. Stellantis, the multinational automotive corporation formed through the merger of Fiat Chrysler and PSA Group, opened its Kenitra plant in 2019. The facility produces Peugeot and Opel models primarily for European markets, taking advantage of the established supplier network and proven industrial capabilities that Morocco had developed around automotive manufacturing. The expansion into electric vehicles represents Morocco's ability to evolve with changing global demand patterns. Stellantis has committed to producing electric vehicles at its Kenitra facility, including the Citroën Ami urban electric vehicle. This transition required additional investments in specialized equipment and workforce training, but Morocco's industrial zones proved capable of adapting to new technological requirements while maintaining competitiveness. Today, Morocco assembles over 550,000 vehicles annually, making it the second largest automotive producer in Africa behind South Africa. But unlike South Africa, which primarily serves its domestic market, approximately 80% of Moroccan automotive production is exported, primarily to European markets. This export orientation demonstrates Morocco's integration into global supply chains, rather than simple import substitution. The aerospace industry represents Morocco's most impressive industrial diversification success. Aerospace manufacturing requires precision, reliability, and technical capabilities that few developing countries can master. Yet Morocco has attracted over 150 aerospace companies, creating an aerospace export industry worth over $2 billion annually. The aerospace cluster centers around companies like Safran, which produces engine components and aircraft interiors, and suppliers linked to Boeing and Airbus that manufacture fuselage components and wiring systems. These operations produce sophisticated components shipped directly to aircraft assembly lines in Europe and North America. What makes Morocco's aerospace success particularly remarkable is how the industry built upon capabilities developed in automotive manufacturing. Both sectors require precision manufacturing, just-in-time delivery, and complex supply chain coordination. Workers gained experience in quality control and logistics management through automotive operations, skills that proved transferable to aerospace manufacturing. Morocco's mining sector, anchored by phosphate production, provided a crucial foundation for industrial growth while evolving into a more sophisticated operation. Through its state-owned OCP group, Morocco controls approximately 70% of the world's known phosphate reserves, giving the kingdom enormous leverage in global fertilizer markets. But rather than simply exporting raw phosphate rock, OCP has developed integrated production capabilities that transform phosphates into finished fertilizer products. The Jorf Lasfar Industrial Complex represents the scale and sophistication of Morocco's phosphate operations. This massive facility on the Atlantic coast has grown into the world's largest fertilizer production hub, processing phosphate rock through multiple production stages to create finished products for global agricultural markets. The complex includes dedicated port facilities, railway connections, and industrial-scale production equipment that processes millions of tons of phosphate annually. OCP's revenues, which exceeded $5.9 billion in 2020, provide crucial foreign currency earnings that help finance Morocco's broader industrial development. The company employs over 21,000 workers directly and supports thousands of additional jobs through suppliers and service providers. This employment generation helps offset job losses in traditional sectors while providing stable, well-paying employment for Moroccan workers. The strategic importance of phosphates extends beyond immediate economic benefits. Phosphorus is essential for global food production, with roughly half of global crop yields dependent on phosphate-based fertilizers. As global population growth increases food demand, while climate change threatens agricultural productivity, Morocco's phosphate resources become increasingly valuable strategic assets. Recent developments in battery technology have added new dimensions to phosphate demand. Lithium iron phosphate batteries now account for approximately 30% of global electric vehicle battery production. As the automotive industry transitions toward electrification, Morocco's phosphate resources position the kingdom as a critical supplier for the energy transition. The integration of renewable energy with industrial operations creates additional competitive advantages. Morocco's solar and wind installations provide low-cost electricity for energy-intensive operations, reducing operational costs while providing protection against fossil fuel price volatility. Morocco's manufacturing success represents one of the most impressive economic transformations in recent decades. But the kingdom now faces the complex challenge of sustaining growth while addressing persistent structural problems. The same geographic and political factors that enabled Morocco's industrial breakthrough also create vulnerabilities that could limit future development if not carefully managed. The European market dependence that drove Morocco's initial manufacturing success has become a potential weakness as European economic growth slows and political priorities shift. Approximately 80% of Morocco's automotive exports head to European markets, making the kingdom's industrial economy sensitive to European business cycles and trade policies. Recent economic slowdowns across major European economies have already begun affecting demand for Moroccan manufactured goods, highlighting the risks of overdependence on a single export market. Climate change poses increasingly serious challenges for Morocco's long-term development prospects. The kingdom has experienced repeated droughts over the past decade, straining water resources that are essential for both agricultural production and industrial operations. Manufacturing facilities require substantial water inputs for production processes, while drought conditions threaten the agricultural sector that still employs a significant portion of Morocco's workforce. Water scarcity also affects Morocco's energy strategy. While the kingdom has made impressive investments in solar power, hydroelectric generation remains an important component of the energy mix. Declining reservoir levels due to reduced rainfall threaten hydroelectric capacity, potentially requiring increased reliance on more expensive alternatives or limiting industrial expansion. The employment challenge represents Morocco's most serious internal contradiction. Despite billions of dollars in foreign investment and world-class infrastructure development, unemployment remains stubbornly high at approximately 13% overall, rising to over 30% among young people. This employment gap reflects the capital-intensive nature of modern manufacturing, which generates fewer jobs per dollar of investment than traditional industries. The geographic concentration of industrial development exacerbates employment challenges. Most foreign investment in high-value manufacturing jobs are concentrated in the Casablanca, Rabat, Kenitra Corridor, and Tangier region, while interior provinces lag behind. This creates what analysts describe as two-speed Morocco, where coastal regions integrate with global markets, while inland areas remain excluded from industrial development benefits. Youth unemployment and regional inequality have begun generating political tensions that threaten Morocco's stability advantage. Protests over jobs and economic opportunities reflect frustration among educated young people who cannot find employment matching their expectations. While Morocco avoided Arab Spring upheavals, persistent economic frustrations could undermine the political stability that attracted foreign investors. The skills gap represents another structural challenge limiting Morocco's ability to move up the value chain. While the kingdom successfully attracted assembly and mid-level manufacturing, creating higher value engineering and research capabilities requires more sophisticated educational institutions that still lag behind international standards. Morocco's response to these challenges will determine whether the kingdom can sustain its transformation or faces middle-income stagnation. The government has announced plans to diversify export markets beyond Europe, targeting opportunities in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Success in market diversification could reduce European dependence while opening new growth opportunities. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area presents significant opportunities for Moroccan manufacturers to access rapidly growing African markets. As African countries reduce trade barriers and improve infrastructure, Morocco's established manufacturing capabilities could serve expanding continental markets. Innovation and research capacity development remain crucial for moving up the value chain. The Mohammed VI Polytechnic University and expanding international research partnerships represent attempts to build innovation capabilities necessary for higher value manufacturing. From my perspective, analyzing Morocco's economic transformation, the kingdom has achieved something genuinely remarkable by leveraging geography, timing, and strategic planning to create a manufacturing hub from nothing. The coordination between infrastructure investment, industrial policy, and workforce development represents textbook economic development executed with impressive precision. However, the sustainability of Morocco's model depends critically on addressing employment and inequality challenges that rapid industrialization created. Capital-intensive modern manufacturing means job creation hasn't kept pace with economic growth, creating social tensions that could undermine the political stability that made industrial development possible. The kingdom's next phase requires transitioning from execution-focused strategy to one emphasizing innovation, skills development, and broad-based employment creation. This transition will be more difficult than initial industrialization because it requires changing social and educational institutions, not just building infrastructure. Morocco's phosphate resources provide a crucial buffer that many developing countries lack. The strategic importance of phosphates for global food security and energy transition gives Morocco leverage and revenue streams that can finance continued development. But ultimately, the kingdom's long-term success depends on creating opportunities for its growing, educated population, rather than simply serving as an efficient production platform for global companies. The Moroccan model offers valuable lessons for other developing countries seeking to build manufacturing capabilities, but also demonstrates challenges that emerge once initial industrialization succeeds. Morocco's next decade will determine whether the kingdom becomes a fully developed economy or remains trapped in middle-income status despite impressive industrial achievement. Morocco has proven that strategic planning, infrastructure investment, and geographic advantages can create manufacturing competitiveness, even for unlikely countries. The kingdom's challenge now is ensuring industrial success translates into broad-based prosperity, rather than simply efficient production capabilities for global supply chains. At Economic Rewind, we believe Morocco's story represents one of the most important economic development cases of our time, offering both inspiration and cautionary lessons for countries seeking to build industrial economies in an increasingly complex global environment. If you found this deep dive into Morocco's economic transformation fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest economic analysis. What aspects of Morocco's development strategy surprised you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what other economic transformation stories you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for watching Economic Rewind, where we unpack the economic forces shaping our world, one story at a time.